If you've traveled at all recently, you've probably noticed it's a whole different ball game. From how we book on our phones to how we think about our impact on the planet, the way we see the world has totally changed. So let's get you set up with the essential English you need to talk all about it.
So here's what we've got lined up. We're going to take a quick look at how travel has evolved. We'll cover the language for booking trips and picking a place to stay. Then we'll dive into the new rules of travel, and we'll finish up with some questions to really get you talking.
All right, first things first. Let's just stop and think about that huge shift for a second. I mean, the days of walking into a travel agent's office to plan a trip, well, for most of us, that feels like ancient history, right? So before we get into all the new words, I've got a question for you. Think about it for a minute. How has technology really changed the way you travel? Has it made things easier, maybe more spontaneous, or, let's be honest, maybe a little more complicated sometimes? Just keep that in the back of your mind as we go.
Okay, let's get practical. Let's talk about actually booking a modern trip. This whole section is about the language you need to get yourself from point A to point B.
First up, a really key term you'll hear a lot, long haul. All this means is a flight that covers a really big distance, usually flying across continents or oceans. So think something like London to Tokyo or New York to Sydney. That's a long-haul flight.
And here's a perfect example of how you'd use that in a sentence. See how it's paired with full-service airline? We'll get to that one in a second. But this phrasing, it's just a really natural way to say what you prefer when you're talking about flying.
And of course, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have the budget carrier. These are those low-cost airlines that have just completely changed the game, really. They've made it possible for so many more people to fly by just offering the basics for a much, much lower price.
And this slide, well, it lays it all out perfectly. With a budget carrier, that first price you see is super low. But then you pay extra for pretty much everything. Checked bags, a drink, you name it. A full-service airline just bundles everything in. Meals, baggage, movies. So the real question is, what do you value more? A low upfront cost or the convenience of an all-in-one price?
Okay, now this next one, dynamic pricing. This explains something that has probably happened to all of us. It's the reason why the price of a flight can literally change from 1 hour to the next. The airlines use these super smart algorithms that adjust the price based on demand, the time of year, even on how many other people are looking at that same flight right now.
So, to help you talk about all this, here are a few really useful phrases. Instead of just saying, I will go, you can sound more natural by saying, I'm planning to visit Japan. Or when you're comparing airlines, you could say, in terms of value for money, a budget carrier isn't always cheaper once you add the baggage fees. See? Much more nuanced.
All right, so you've got your flight sorted. Now, where are you actually going to stay? The options have just exploded. We're way beyond just plain old hotels now.
This brings us to a huge concept, peer-to-peer. This is the idea behind platforms like Airbnb. You're not booking with a big company, you're dealing directly with another person, a peer, who is renting out their own home or apartment. And wow, has this idea shaken up the hotel industry.
But it's not always perfect. This quote really hits on a common worry. With a big hotel chain, you pretty much know exactly what you're going to get. But with the peer-to-peer rental, the experience can be amazing or not so amazing. That's why reading those reviews is just absolutely crucial.
And this slide shows two completely different ways to vacation. All-inclusive is pretty straightforward. You pay one single price for your room, your food, your drinks, everything. It's predictable, it's easy. Off the beaten path is the exact opposite. It's about choosing a place that's not swarming with tourists, maybe a little more remote, and hopefully a bit more authentic. And when you're chatting with friends about where to stay, these phrases are just perfect. You could say, personally, I tend to prefer off-the-beaten-path destinations. Or you could explain, one advantage of an all-inclusive resort is that you don't have to worry about your budget on holiday.
Okay, let's zoom out for a minute. Because modern travel isn't just about booking flights and hotels anymore. It's about the bigger picture and really thinking about the impact we have when we travel.
Okay, these next two terms are probably the most important ones in travel right now. On one hand, you have over-tourism. That's the problem. It's when a place like Venice or Barcelona gets so overwhelmed with visitors that it harms the city and the people who live there. And ironically, that's often fueled by cheap flights and easy rentals. The solution we're all looking for is sustainable tourism, traveling in a way that respects the local culture and doesn't destroy the environment. And here's a great way to talk about making those kinds of choices.
That little phrase, from a sustainability perspective, is a fantastic way to frame your opinion and explain why you might choose to take a train for a shorter trip instead of hopping on another quick flight.
And finally, we have a trend that's completely blurring the lines between work and travel, the digital nomad. This is someone who uses technology to work from their laptop while traveling anywhere in the world. It's completely changing why people travel and for how long they stay in one spot.
Phew, we have covered a ton of new language. So in this final section, we're going to flip it. It's your turn. Let's put all this new vocabulary to use so you can feel totally confident talking about modern travel.
Okay, so let's circle all the way back to that first question I asked. Now that we've talked about things like dynamic pricing and peer-to-peer apps, how has technology really changed the way you plan and experience travel?
So, what's your take? When it comes to a long-haul flight, do you stick with the comfort of a full-service airline, or are you all about finding the best deal on a budget carrier? What's the deciding factor for you?
Let's talk about that big picture again. When you're planning a trip, do you find yourself thinking about things like over-tourism or sustainable tourism? What steps, if any, do you take to try and travel a little more responsibly?
And to wrap things up, let's look to the future. What do you think is next? Are we going to see even more digital nomads? Will there be an even bigger push for sustainable tourism? Or is there something else on the horizon? It's a really fascinating thing to think about, and now you have the language to do it.